just wanted to say, I think this is only the second forced funeral I've ever been to. Don't like them, don't like funerals at all, and don't like forced funerals. Particularly when you look at the circumstances of what happened, but more importantly, it's not just the loss of a colleague, it's those members of the public that are actually enjoying a day out in London, looking at the wonderful sights this city has to offer. It's not just for us, it's for everybody in London. But one of the most important things about that day is it showed once again why I believe this is the greatest city in the world.
This is the Scarcity Studios YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. And our sponsors are Alpha Claims and Hire Birmingham, the leading and best accident management company. Get a replacement car anywhere in 1 hour. I really appreciate you joining me today, and this story comes from West London and it involves the Chief Superintendent Paul Martin. In total, 2 officers have been found guilty of gross misconduct and sacked from the police for corruption. The Chief Superintendent even used money to fund his own holidays and charging the taxpayer for this. In this episode, I'm going to speak about how I believe I have evidence to suggest that the police and the media actually work together, and in some cases maybe the media were used by the police to push a certain narrative and to also avoid any hard questions. Paul Martin was accused of creating a culture of corruption where officers who were in good favour would get promotions over people that maybe deserved it because of merit. Paul Martin has been in the police for 23 years and he started in Wandsworth and he was attached to the homicide unit. He moved on to Lambeth and has worked within the public events management for a period of time. He also worked at Notting Hill Carnival and also kept people safe on New Year's Eve. In 2016 he was appointed as the commander of West London, and Mr. Martin was the Deputy Borough Commander for Hounslow for 4 years before that. The official police statement on the situation says that the misconduct hearing, led by an independent legally qualified chair, concluded on Sunday the 16th of January and said that all findings and sanctions are to be recorded in public record. Chief Superintendent Paul Martin was found to have breached the standards of professional behaviour, amounting to gross misconduct in relation to honesty and integrity, orders and instructions, duties and responsibilities, authority, respect and courtesy, and also equality and diversity. The breaches related to the misuse of corporate credit cards, conduct towards junior staff members, and one of them was a pregnant colleague, and failure to declare a conflict of interest when assisting a promotion for Chief Inspector Davinder Kandohla. He was dismissed without notice, and Mr. Martin, who is the borough commander, one of the disciplinaries that he received was due to the fact that the way that he spoke to female colleagues, where he said that they should go and make him tea and porridge. And Chief Inspector Kandohla was also found to have breached standards of professional behaviour, amounting to gross misconduct in relation to honesty, integrity, authority, respect, courtesy, duties and responsibilities. The breach is related to finding that he didn't declare a conflict of interest when he was taking part in a promotion process. He provided a misleading account to the professional standards during an investigation into expenses and also conduct towards junior members of staff. He was said to have claimed £5,500 in expenses for a corporate holiday, and it was blown on booze and also flight upgrades and a week-long policing trip to Florida. There was also 2 allegations against other officers, but they were found not guilty. The officers were Sergeant James Deluzio and also PC Karinda Kandohla, who it doesn't say if she's his girlfriend or a relative of the Chief Superintendent, but she was found not guilty of the allegations against her. The investigation dated back to 2018 and followed allegations that Chief Superintendent Martin and Chief Inspector Kandohla had breached the standards in their promotion process. A further investigation was launched in September 2019 after concerns were raised about their standards and the way that they dealt with their colleagues. And all of this occurred from 2017 to 2019, and thanks to social media I was able to gather a lot of different pictures and also documentation of the time when there was applying for this promotion, because they all followed each other on Twitter and also interacted quite a lot as well. The commander, Catherine Roper, said that the behaviour demonstrated by the officers has no place in the Met, and it is right to be subjected to a detailed and thorough investigation by the inquiry. 3 of the officers were in leadership rank and should have been setting a strong example for those in the Met, and instead they abused their positions of trust, and in particular it was the way that they spoke to other staff. This will not be tolerated in the Met, and they must be held accountable for their actions. So this definitely paints a picture that there was a bit of a toxic culture going on inside this department as well, where officers were derogatory to women and also made jokes that are just basically not accepted anymore. What I found during my research was the fact that the police, especially Paul Martin, was very good at setting the narrative with the press. And when I say this, it means that they contact the press and tell them that what they wish to talk about, and it isn't the press that's actually contacting them and demanding that they answer for something that's gone on. For example, knife crime or economic problems to do with the police. These are the things that journalists are meant to be approaching the police to get discussions on. But I found throughout the whole of his career, it was him that set the narrative, often about youth violence and stuff like this. And in this one 2018 interview with My London newspaper, a local democracy reporter, I have no idea what that is, called Martin Alvery, went to West London to meet the new boss, and they said that this was an exclusive interview, and they had the opportunity to speak to the chief superintendent very early on into his career as well. And what I learned from this interview is that I actually think that a lot of this corruption, the way that they spoke, and the culture that was going on inside the unit could have been noticed a lot sooner if this paper had actually set the narrative themselves instead of letting him set the narrative. The article is very descriptive, and I'm going to read the article and the way that he also describes the meeting as well. He said that when he got into his office, there was soul music blasting from speakers on his desk, and he was talking animatedly to a couple of colleagues, and it was clear, he said, that his soul was what he was all about. As he leaps up to shake my hand, I see he's a big guy, not just physically, but he clearly sees himself in shape, and also as a big welcoming handshake and a massive charisma. He starts by revealing his even bigger passion for policing, and also about the people that he looks after. He immediately orders me some tea and cake and starts talking about his massive job. So straight away, he's automatically mentions something that was brought up in the inquiry, the fact that he demanded tea and cake. And I wonder who it was that brought this tea and cake to him as well. They said in the interview that he was the self-confessed son of a preacher man, and his father was a Pentecostal minister. The chief inspector, who was 51 at the time of the interview, spoke about racism and growing up in Mitcham in southwest London, and also being from a tiny minority at the time. He said that I've been a victim of crime, and I used to take several different routes to school, and I would also not tell my parents or report this crime and go to the hospital and say that I'd been injured or something like this. So straight away from this interview, he's come in and Paul is blasting music in a professional environment. He's ordering people about to get him tea and cake and things like this. Straight away, Paul has set the narrative that this interview is about the fact that he was attacked and also suffered racism when he was a young man as well. So straight away, I feel like this reporter has avoided asking him any questions about his actual job. In a quotation from the interview, it said that Chief Superintendent Martin started policing 25 years ago, and he said that when I started there was no black faces, and nowadays it's very diverse. And he said this is why I love West London, it's because it's the most diverse area in the country. He shouted, "I love it," and he slammed his hand on the table as well. So that as well gives a good insight, I think, into the type of character and over-the-top persona that he seemed to have that he seemed to have in the office. Another thing that I believe was overlooked in this interview was where he said that while I was in the office, he was constantly talking to his other colleagues. The office doors were open and he was making demands and cajoling and questioning, but also enjoying high-level banter. There's lots of laughter and lots of camaraderie amongst the serious task at hand. And this for me was really interesting because he's talking about cajoling, which is taking the mick, and high-level banter. So I wonder what he means by high-level banter. To me, this would add up to what the inquiry revealed was inappropriate and the reason why he got sacked. So this interviewer was in the police station, this journalist, at the time when he was actually in charge, witnessing the behaviour that he was later sacked for, and didn't think at any point that this was unusual. And this is what I mean by the media following the narrative that the police have set, instead of the media questioning what the police are doing. In an investigative report by the New Statesman, it was revealed in 2020 that 220 names of police officers that were actually convicted and sacked for criminal offences while on duty were never revealed, and a lot of the misconduct hearings were held in private. And this means that journalists weren't even invited or told about the cases, and in some cases the journalists were actually removed from the hearings. According to data from the New Statesman, 19 different police forces said that 1 in 5 hearings, which was around 20%, were held in private since 2018. And the New Statesman worked alongside the Brighton Argus, and they found records that dismissed 212 individuals that were not stored upon the internet a short time after the offences took place. These included officers that were dismissed for domestic violence, sexual harassment, possessing indecent images of children, colluding with suspects, engaging in sexual relationships with vulnerable people, and also excessive use of force. The New Statesman revealed that many of the officers secretly were kicked out of the profession following gross misconduct hearings, and a lot of them were not actually notified about this. So this is actual proof that the police were withholding information about inquiries that were going on, and also disciplinaries in relation to corruption. So this would, of course, mean that the public perception of what was going on was very, very low. And as we're seeing since Wayne Couzens, a lot of different cases are emerging now where things that were suppressed before are now coming into the light with a lot of different whistleblowers. So I really appreciate you joining me for this story, and I really want to hear what people have to say on this. Please don't forget to follow me online as well at Scarcity Studios on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok and Facebook, and I'll be back again very shortly with some more news. Peace.